Well, before we begin this video, I just want to let you guys know that most of this video is spoiler free. I pretty much only use clips I had roughly up until the first full moon in the game, which is about early May. Any other clips you see are from promotional footage. There's a little bit from that Meaning of Life trailer that was shown at the Game Awards. I tried not to show anything super major, which is why some of the video clips may not exactly match what I'm saying, but that is what it is. So if you're watching this and you don't want to get spoiled, then hopefully this is good enough reassurance for you. Since about 2018, I've been saying that Persona 3 Remake is an inevitability. While not unplayable, the original game is a lot rougher and a lot less friendly to casual players than its, at the time, inaccessible sequel, Persona 4 Golden. A lot of time has passed since then, and we've finally been graced with a remake of Persona 3 in the form of Persona 3 Reload. So does Persona 3's remake live up to the high expectations set by the series?
All it says is that you accept full responsibility for your actions.
I think it's good for me to establish my knowledge of Persona 3 before really stepping into this review. I have played both FES and Portable. I have not completed either one. While many people do not have issues with the systems and gameplay, I personally felt that the mechanics just made the game unfun. Having to choose to play the portable version for controllable party members was not my favorite thing. Whether or not the design is intentional, it just isn't very fun for me. The tired system also didn't sit well with me either. It limited what I could do in a single day in a game where my time was already limited, and I personally, again, didn't really like that. And by the time I had reached May in P3 FES, I clocked out. I was done. However, I have watched the movies and read the manga. I know the story, but I don't believe that accounts for everything the game itself has to offer. So without further ado, now that you know where I stood, let's get into the review.
That was an ingenious move.
Translating Persona 3's visuals to more modern standards is honestly pretty easy to imagine, even without the remake. It definitely helps that Persona 3 dancing already existed before this, but there's a distinct style change that makes the game shift into its own. This isn't simply taking Persona 3 and making it Persona 5. While there are elements and ideas that Reload inherits, as natural for any remake in any series, it also follows its own identity. For one, you can definitely see that Atlus honed in on making the UI stylish. P3R takes its own theming to the UI, it doesn't just reuse Persona 5's UI. It's once again flashy yet efficient, reducing your time in menus while also delivering satisfying eye candy. The battle portraits react when taking damage or when afflicted with ailments. The costumes of the characters are reflected in their skill UI as well. They took concepts and ideas that Persona 5 was praised for and made them fit into Reload's own design. The overworld still maintains the same camera angles and whatnot, for the most part. The camera is a bit more dynamic to fit in with the fact that everything is now built to scale. Rest in peace, giant cat and very large bed. You will be missed. While on the topic of visuals, I also want to talk about the 3D character models. While we have a lot of examples of Atlus steadily improving their 3D model game, jumping from Persona 5 to Persona 3 Reload, you can see the clear difference in quality of the 3D models. The faces are a lot more detailed, and it seems like Atlus is aware of how much they can capture with just these models alone. While anime cutscenes have returned, there are a lot of scenes that have instead been translated to 3D animated cutscenes. To me, this is not a big deal. The models look good enough that making these scenes 3D animated is worthwhile. I personally don't see any loss in this. And the 3D models look good enough that they actually do attract your attention in any kind of cutscene. Usually my eyes in Persona 5 were focused on the bust-ups when the characters were talking. However, when I was playing P3 Reload, most of the time my eyes were on the 3D models, which is something a little bit different because the models actually look on par with the portraits. Anime cutscene wise though, Wit is responsible for it, and they're actually pretty good. I'd say more so that the quality as a whole is much more consistent between scenes than in previous games, and there's an obvious amount of time and effort put into them. But the jump to better looking 3D models is probably going to give way to more of a coexistence of the anime scenes and the 3D animated ones, which ultimately is a good thing. To wrap up the presentation, the soundtrack has been entirely redone. And there is some disappointment to the original singer not returning for the game, but after playing the game and experiencing the OST, I can say that I am more than thoroughly satisfied with the soundtrack. Both new songs and the rearranged tracks are great, and after hearing Lotus Juice sing and Color Your Night, I need more of that.
It's Tartarus sauce.
One of the hurdles of Persona 3 was Tartarus. While I personally did not mind the general design of it, there were mechanics that I found a bit frustrating to deal with. So Persona 3 Reload does do away with the core issues I had. That being said, there's no way to remake this tower without really procedural generation. You're still scaling many floors all the way to the top, eventually. You'll find items and treasure chests and scattered around the floor in these destructible thingies. There are also lock chests that will ask you for somewhere between 1 to 3 Twilight Fragments to open. And speaking of Twilight Fragments, they are a kind of currency you'll be wanting to keep a lookout for. You can use them at the entrance of Tartarus to heal your party to full, and inside to, as I said, unlock chests. You can find these throughout the dungeon itself. You'll find some in the overworld, and most of them will probably be via Elizabeth's requests, which are basically side quests that you can do. You'll probably want to hang on to a few if you intend to scale the tower in a single night. The nice thing about P3 is that there is so little to do at night past a certain point, that going to Tartarus several times in a cycle is not necessarily a bad thing. It's definitely blatant as to the reason why they don't have that much to do at night. Regardless, the changes made to the dungeon as a whole are pretty good, and it makes the experience a lot less frustrating. Though I'd be lying if I didn't find the people wandering to Tartarus at the last second to be kind of annoying. Now, battle mechanics wise, most of it remains the same. The Ton Pass has been implemented in the form of shifting, which doesn't restore HP or SP, nor does it power up the next character. Those effects are actually passives your personas can learn instead. This helps not break the game absolutely, but shifting existing in P3 also does make the game a lot easier. So yeah, unsurprisingly, the game is mostly easier than base Persona 3. But Merciless is more of a true challenge with the removal of the damage multiplier, so that might help if you want some kind of difficulty.
Ace Detective? You're so dumb. More like...
As for the social sim aspect, a lot of your standard stuff is here. Going to school, social links, social stats, all that jazz stays. P3, however, focuses social stats into 3 different categories instead of 5. Each stat can also grow to level 6 now. The game eases up pretty quickly on the reins, so you'll be given access to many of your social links pretty early, and it's up to you to decide how to manage them. This is pleasantly surprising and different from how P4 and P5 juggle social links early, and having every rank fully voiced is an absolute delight.
Oh la la, how wonderful! I wish to set my soul on fire and learn the ways of the great samurai also.
That being said, there are several social links in this game that I am just not impressed with. That's understandable, being that this is the first time these were implemented, but some of these definitely are uninteresting, frustrating, or just kind of bland. There are still some that you absolutely have to experience. On top of this, link episodes were added to give a chance to hang out with your male teammates who do not have social links. These are the next best thing without having to cut content by removing another social link and bringing them into the social system. And the best part about this is you can choose whichever answer you want without having to worry about the points. All you have to fear is hurting someone's feelings. Now, a majority of your social links take place during the day. In fact, your nighttime is basically open once you pass maybe the halfway mark of the game. This is probably because Tartarus' original design and mechanics was basically made so that you might have to leave and come back, so they gave you a lot of nights open to continuously do this. But since they changed that in this game, I wound up just spending a ton of time at the arcade boosting my stats.
Do you, have any idea what she just said?
There is that never-ending opinion that Persona 5 has the best gameplay, Persona 4 has the best characters, and Persona 3 has the best story. Personally, I don't really subscribe to that. I think all the games are strong for the same reasons and for different ones. It's fine to compare them, but I like them all, and I don't feel the need to put one down over another. Persona 3's narrative is great, though. The pacing is also a little bit sluggish at the start, but this is definitely due to the game's structure. I don't think it's especially detrimental. In some ways, it's thematic because if you're rushing ahead to the next story beat, you're missing precious time that could be spent with others, forming bonds and whatnot. But P3's narrative really does beat into your emotions. This is a trip, and I think it's easy to understand why this story resonates with so many people. Unlike the themes of rebellion and truth, all of us will have to, or have had to, confront death in some way. The theming is much more universal in that regard. So Persona 3 Reload continues to deliver on this, and the up-presentation does wonders for driving that emotional stake straight through your heart. I don't want to get into spoilers here, but I will say that regardless of what was added, I didn't care much for the antagonistic group. It doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of the game, but it is a little disappointing that this portion fell so flat for me.
This isn't a game, Akihiko.
Persona 3 Reload is a tried and true remake of Persona 3. It maintains and enhances a majority of the story elements. I do agree that for those who were hoping for all the original elements to be properly maintained, like the tactics system, it is a shame that not everything survived. But I don't find it to be a deal breaker personally. The game has sent me on an emotional roller coaster with some of the highest highs in the series, but also some of the lowest lows in the social links. It's great that people can finally experience this story in a way that doesn't cut corners in a modern era, but it is a tough pill to swallow that this is not, and there probably will never be, a definitive edition, definitive version of the Persona 3 experience. There is a void that can only be filled by a DLC, or something. Make it happen, Atlus, I know you can do it. And hopefully soon we will see new things on the horizon for Persona. So what did you think of Persona 3 Reload? Not feeling it? Liking it? Loving it? Busy with other games? I know there's a lot coming out right now. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, you may leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Persona, Atlus, and JRPG related. We're coming up on a few reviews, like my full thoughts on Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, as well as the eventual review of Unicorn Overlord. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.